Hello, everyone. Welcome back to ListenABLE, our podcast where we try to bring people into the world of disability. Maybe someone like me, you can be a dumb able-bodied guy. Or maybe you could be a 7-time Australian Open wheelchair tennis player like Dylan Alcott.
G'day, guys. Great to be here. And as we always say, we're constantly humbled by the response that we're getting for this podcast. Everybody that keeps taking a photo and sharing it on their social medias, we see that. It really helps us as well. And yeah, we're trying to normalize disability in a really cool, informative, different, humorous, emotional way. And it's not us doing it, mate. It's the guests. And we have another cracking guest with us today.
Let's let them introduce themselves.
Awesome. Hi, folks. My name is Spencer West. I am a content creator. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm an author. I love superheroes. I love playing video games. And I currently live in Toronto, Canada.
I was going to ask where that delicious accent from. So good. I'm looking forward to listening to that voice for the next 45 minutes or so. And Spencer, what's your disability, brother?
Yeah, so I was born with a genetic disease called Sacral Agenesis, which caused the muscles in my legs not to work. So I had 2 surgeries. The first was at the age of 2, where they removed my legs at the knee. And the idea was that I would use prosthetics to get around, but it just didn't work out. I couldn't move my legs enough to make that happen. So then at the age of 5, my legs were removed just below my pelvis, which is, I'm like sitting on the couch right now, but like, which is what you see now. So yeah, so I navigate the world on my hands and then in a wheelchair.
So for people who couldn't see you just then, you did like a little dip with your arms and you lifted up your torso. Your amputations are like, probably, I'm going to be upfront with you, the highest I've ever seen. So they're pretty much right. Is it under your bum, or have you lost part of your bum as well? Where is it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I do have a bit of leg and a bit of like thigh left. So I would say just like under my bum.
Yeah, but you, from the outset, your T-shirt kind of, goes a little bit further in length. So it does look like that you don't have anything below your torso. Navigating your life on your hands, you wouldn't know anything else, or was the surgery so young that you do have memory of having those surgeries and your legs?
Yeah, this is a great question. I do have memory of my legs, just that they didn't work and that I hated having my toenails clipped.
All right.
But, they never worked. So I always navigated the world on my hands. So, when my legs were amputated, it made navigating the world easier, because then I could sort of stand upright instead of having my legs drag behind me. So, and I do remember my surgeries. I do have memories of those because, it was in the 80s. And in those days, your parents couldn't stay the night with you. So I remember being a kid, having the surgery, and then at night, my parents would have to say goodnight and then leave.
Obviously, you've got an incredible life, and we can't wait to hear about it over this episode. But can we talk about having this amputation done in the 80s versus what would have been had Spencer West been born now? Do you know if there's any sort of technologies that might have changed what your lifestyle could be if you were 5 years old today?
I don't know technology-wise if anything would have changed necessarily. The thing about my disability is that it's still so rare and there's still so few cases that they don't really know what causes it. So I don't think in that regard, I'm not sure what the decision would be, but I think that what would be different is the rules that exist now. Of course, your parents can stay in the hospital with you. I think there's a lot more programs to help kids understand what they're going to go through and what that looks like, and to help them deal with those things emotionally. Where in the 80s, those just didn't really exist, because it was very sort of get in, get out, and move on with your life, so to speak. Now, at least from my perspective.
We'll talk a bit more about your disability and how you feel today. But I've got to say, one thing I'm straight away impressed with about you is your confidence. You're a really confident guy. You're also killing it on social media. I just want to get a check right now. If you've got over 100,000 followers on Instagram, put your hand up. Anybody? Oh, I do. Spencer's got it. Angus? Mm-hmm. Okay, just making sure Angus realised he was 3 out of 3 there, Spencer. However, we'll get to how you are today, but talk us through...
Hands up if you're humble.
Spencer didn't put his hand up either.
I got nervous.
Yeah, good. Mate, talk us through you growing up, right? So you had your second operation. You probably, as we said, one of the highest, double leg amputations you can have. Were you always this happy guy, or did you struggle with that a bit?
Yeah, I always was. And part of that does genuinely come from my parents. My mom was always a big proponent of, let's not focus on the things that we can't do. There will be those things, but if we spend so much time on those things, we'll never really get to see the things that are good, or the positive things that we can focus on. So there was that, and I feel really grateful that I grew up in a Italian family. My mom is Greek and Italian. My dad's a whole mix of things, but there was a lot of love and a lot of family all of the time, and I was just encouraged to do everything that everybody else was doing, along with the terrible things of like cleaning your room and helping with the dishes and those sorts of things.
What'd you do that for?
So I think
I'm in a wheelchair. I got out of all that shit.
No, my mom refused to let that happen. I had to do all the things.
So as a kid, though, so you obviously had a family that was super accepting off the bat. You're theirs. What about once you left the front door of the home? Did you navigate life on a skateboard, as a lot of people do in these sort of circumstances?
Yeah, I did. I had a skateboard, and I had one of those, a roller racer. It was like big in the late 80s, early 90s. It was like this triangle that you sat on, and you had these two bars, and you like navigate.
Oh my God,
like this.
I do remember those.
What was it?
A roller racer. You had like steel bars,
Bro,
and that would navigate.
I had one of them as well, right? And we called it the flying turtle, right? Because it looks a bit like a turtle, and you hold the two things.
Yes.
That was like how I got around before I used the wheelchair. That's sick.
Yeah, see?
Can I? And this sounds like a name drop. I'm sorry, but I'm going to tell a story. My dad used to sponsor a skateboard company called Airwalk, and the number one skateboarder for Airwalk pre him being a superstar was Tony Hawk. And Tony Hawk used to skate on this little ramp, and I used to go on the flying turtle with him, and he'd never seen anything like that. I got it at what we call like a St. Vincent de Paul's for $2. And that was the way that I got around. They were awesome, weren't they, man?
It was amazing. I mean, it took a lot more strength to use than the actual skateboard itself, but yeah, it was a nice like second option for a mode of transportation. But to answer your question, I grew up in a small town in the United States, in the state of Wyoming, and so the people in my neighborhood knew who I was from the very beginning, and it was a lot of young people, so that was no big deal. But it's when I went to school that there were things. I remember in grade 2, like some kid tripped me in the hall, and I fell and smashed my face on the ceramic tile, and like had 2 black eyes and like a goose egg. And, so there were moments where I definitely experienced bullying because of my disability, but it wasn't like it was all the time. There's just a few stories of those sort of isolated incidents when it comes to students. I think the other example that I might give is, when I got to middle school and high school, I was like, I was into choir, and I was a singer, and my choir teacher was really amazing, but I wanted to be in like the best choir. And I remember trying out, and she said to me, she was like, listen, you have the talent to be in this choir, but there's a lot of dancing, so I think you should just be in this choir instead. So there was like these little microaggressions of ableism that I experienced. So that was a little bit of the experience, but there was a lot of positive stuff too.
Yeah, I feel, we've talked to a lot of people on this podcast who have the same way. It's not like direct discrimination, but that, as you said, that indirect ableism. An example that I use, Spencer, is I play sport, and I used to try and play, and they're like, no, you can just be the manager. And you're like, well, I can actually play. You know what I mean? So did you have to really, when you tried to like change that, did you really have to advocate for yourself to start getting included in the things you wanted to?
I did, and it's so interesting. I had the same experience. I was really into musical theater, and I got into a play at the early start of my high school career, which was awesome. But then I kept going back, and I kept getting, there's too much dancing in this show, so like, why don't you be the assistant director?
Yeah.
Why don't you be the assistant? And I was grateful that I was included, but I was like, no, I'm going to show you. So I kept going back every year, and finally, the last year, my director was like, you know what? I've got this really cool play. I think there's a great part for you in this play. Obviously, I want you to audition, but like, this is what I'm thinking. So yeah, I definitely felt like I had to constantly prove myself in that regard when it came to musical theater.
Did you nail the audition?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah, 100%.
We talk often in this podcast, Spencer, about having role models of somebody that looks like you, someone to look up to or aspire towards when you're a child. Did you see somebody with a similar condition or similar physical features that you could aspire to be, whether it be in your town of Wyoming or, social media didn't exist when we were growing up, we're similar ages. So how did you find somebody to relate to yourself in your own disability?
I gotta be honest, there was no one. There just wasn't anyone.
How'd that make you feel?
I remember I didn't know any better, but I think it's because, at that time when we looked at disability, the messages that I was receiving from everyone was, oh, you don't want to be seen as disabled. You want to be seen as navigating the world just like everyone else. You're normal. So that's how I sort of pictured myself. And now, as the world has changed and I've gotten to know things, how awful that was at the time, but that was the sentiment. So the first disabled person that I saw was Marlee Matlin, who we know is deaf, and she's an incredible actress. But for me, that's the first real memory I have of someone that's disabled. Now, my mom had a friend who was in a wheelchair, but she didn't have the use of her legs because she was in an accident. So I was the privilege of my disability is that I was way more mobile than she was. So to me, like, there was no one, and I didn't consider myself disabled at the time.
Mm.
I mean, as you said, there are a lot of people out there with wheelchairs who are paraplegics like me, so we've got legs that just kind of don't work. Do you get a lot of people coming up to, I imagine you would, because it's obviously you can see that your amputations are quite high. Do you get a lot of people coming up to you asking what happened and being really interested about your story?
All the time. Like, I get questions all of
What's
the time.
You get some dumb stuff, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah. I mean, before, and I'm sure you experience this too, to some degree, is like, nobody even asked me my name first. They're like, what happened? How do you go to the bathroom? Can you have kids? Like, those are the first three questions that I usually get. And then how do I drive a car?
Oh yeah, you've got hand controls like Dylan, we imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the age of acceptance? Because if a small child comes up to you, of course you answer your questions differently. What's the age, guys, where it flicks from this is maybe potentially a little bit inappropriate and you should know better? Let's discuss, broadly in your own opinions, what that age is. Where does it go from cute and understanding to, okay, this is a little bit insulting?
Angus is asking this, Spencer, because he just had a child as well. So he's starting to going to have these questions. What do you reckon, Spencer? That's a good question, Angus. What do you reckon?
Yeah, you know what? I think if you were in middle school, you're old enough to slightly understand how the world works.
What's middle school in the US? Is that primary school?
No, it's like year 9. 9th grade?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
like grade 8 or 9, I think. I think
generous.
that's like a good age of like, the basics, of how to interact with other humans. That's what I would say. But I mean, everyone's different. I don't know. What would you guys say?
No, I'd say about 16 years old. I'll give leeway up to. Because, and you'll agree with this, I think, Spencer, tell me if you don't, you can't deter people from being interested, especially kids. So one thing that's really tough is when little kids come up and go, oh my God, what happened to you? Are you a transformer or whatever? And the parents reprimand them and say, don't ask questions, don't be rude. Because then when they go to school and see someone like them, they're scared to come up, right?
Yeah.
So you have to, you can't invite questions of kids and then go, you can't ask that, because it doesn't really work that way. So I've never really thought about an age bracket, but I'd say about 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're in the same ball bracket.
If an 18-year-old, someone asks, if your dick
you're at the
works or
pub,
something, and I say
you can't ask questions.
you got to buy me a beer first, right, before you find that out. There you go.
Another question.
Yeah, exactly.
You use middle school, we use high school. Another Australia-US difference I'd like to know is we have in Australia the NDIS. It's the National Disability Insurance Scheme, where we have, certain financial allowances for people with disabilities.
Just to update you, Spencer, so, when someone has a car accident, they get insured. There was nothing outside of that except car accidents or workplace accidents in Australia. But now anybody who has any form of disability can get, well, within reason, if they get approved, can get on the NDIS. So it's a cool system.
But I look at the US like your healthcare system with Obamacare, and it seems a little bit tragic over there. Am I wrong? How is the insurance scheme or the disability insurance scheme over in the US?
Yeah, you know what? I moved to Canada 12 years ago, so I'm sort of out of the loop when it comes to the United States, and I don't even know a ton in Canada either, to be honest. I know, we've got some amazing tax credits in Canada, and there's a lot more help with like, savings and that sort of stuff here in Canada. But to be honest, my insurance is the same as everyone else's. And, in Canada, we have socialized medicine. So everyone is sort of covered for the basic stuff. So when it comes to like driving and that, it's all the same. There isn't anything to my knowledge that is different.
Yeah, but in this, for example, in Australia, the NDIS you don't pay to be on the NDIS. It's not an insurance scheme like private health cover.
It's tax paid.
Yeah, it's tax paid. So do you have that over there as well, or do you have to pay to be covered for your disability within health insurance?
Yeah, no, I would have to be paid to be covered for my disability.
You have to pay. You pay for wheelchairs and everything, or can you get funding?
Yeah, there is funding. Now, I feel really grateful that in my sort of experience in the job that I've had, I've been able to be an ambassador for an organization. And then that's how I'm able to get the wheelchairs for me in particular.
Yeah.
I realize that's a huge
Yeah,
privilege
same as
compared to
me.
most
I'm
people.
sponsored as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're very lucky. I agree. Yep.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your transport as an adult. So you went from skateboards to wheelchairs.
Yeah. Yeah. My doctors really wanted me to try prosthetics. And so I used them twice a week with like a therapist up until about 6th grade. And then they were just so difficult to use, and I hated them so much that I just transferred straight to a wheelchair. And then I've just been using that for the rest of my life.
So we've had other guests who are amputees, and obviously they have a stump, which we call it here in Australia. I'm not sure, same as you potentially, where you can attach a
Yeah.
prosthetic to the remaining part of your arm and leg, and then you can use the prosthetic. But do you have enough of a stump to actually use prosthetics, or is that what makes it difficult?
Yeah, what made it difficult is I don't really. So they like created this bucket that like sits on the top of the prosthetics, and then I would like fit my body in there, and then I would have to use crutches, and I would have to swing my weight side to side and use momentum to push each leg forward with what leg that I have left. And it was just so exhausting, and so it just took too much energy for me to use personally.
Right. So I because I watch you on TikTok and your Instagram, I didn't see any sort of other forms of transport for you, because most of the stuff that you do on socials is you getting around using your arms. So how much, if you could do a percentage of getting around, is it strictly in home, any wheelchair use? Have you adapted your home for your disability? How does it work? And then outside, are you always taking a wheelchair?
Yeah, when I'm at home, I'd say it's a lot of it's on my hands, and then it as I've gotten older, I do use my wheelchair a lot more at home, and my wheelchair is sort of like a step stool sometimes too. It allows me some heights to reach my counters and stuff. So no, my home doesn't need to be necessarily adapted in that regard. But when I'm out and about, absolutely, I can't walk on my arms. It's just too far. So like I use my wheelchair anywhere else that I go, and then of course I have a car for any sort of long distance stuff. But yeah, at home it's mostly on my hands, and then out and about it's always in my chair.
Can I? And I. This is a able-bodied guy asking maybe a stupid question. Would you take a piggyback from a friend? If you had like a friend and you're walking down the streets of Canada, would you hold on for a piggyback? Like, if it's easy, I don't know.
Correct,
Like, is that
correct.
a bag? You know what I mean?
Correct on the dumb question.
Yep.
I like it.
Yeah. yeah, of course. Like I've definitely done that. Would I want to like go to a pub and have my friend carry me on his back? No, I mean they would, and that'd be totally fine. But one time we wanted to play that game Chicken, where you get on each other's shoulders, and so my buddy was like, get on my back, and then I don't know if I can say this, but he was like, all I can feel is your balls slamming against my back.
You can say that. That's the kind of content we want. I like that.
Okay.
I like that a lot.
Okay.
So then you kept the piggyback going then. That sounds good.
That's right, for another 30 minutes.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, I guess it was just sometimes I think it could, like for transferring, I know Dylan, there's certain circumstances that it's much more comfortable when you've got friends or family that you can be able to do stuff to get Dylan around. Whereas if you didn't know somebody, you can't go, hey, let's do the formal way of getting me up and down stairs, etc.
Now,
yeah, every now and then my buddies will pick me up in certain situations if we need to do so. But no, piggyback it's not usually something I do.
Can I ask him how much do you weigh?
Yeah, we're gonna have to do the conversion here because I weigh about 80 pounds.
Oh, 80 pounds. That's wow.
It's about 50 kilos.
No, not that much, bro. It's like 35, I reckon.
I'm the worst at math, so
Yeah.
Goes up.
No, I'm telling you, it's less.
Trust
Ready?
me, it's more. Watch
I'm
Dylan.
not.
Watch Dylan. Watch this.
36 kilos.
What?
Yeah, man, it's less.
Oh,
2.2.
36 kilos. So, okay,
80 pounds
wow.
is 36 kilos.
Okay, I am way off. That is.
Because I'm not a big unit. Like I was born with a tumor wrapped around my spine, Spencer. So I'm in a wheelchair, but like I got broad shoulders, but my legs are a bit smaller than Angus's would be. But I'm 60. I mean, I play sport, but I'm 68 kilos. So Yeah, that's light.
He's in the off season though. He's just won his Australian
I just
Open.
won
He's
his-
punched a few beers.
yeah.
I tell you what, he's not looking as
I've
good
had
as he
some,
did on
I've
the
had
court.
some, I've had some Maccas, and if you want to sponsor us, McDonald's, hit us up. I was going to ask. So, if you go out to a bar ride and it's upstairs, do you crawl up the stairs on your hands, or would you prefer to get a lift?
Yeah, it depends on the season. If it's the summer and springtime, for sure, I'll just like walk on my hands up the stairs myself, and my buddies just carry my chair. But if it's in the winter time, it'll depend, because if it's like wet and slushy and all that stuff, then yeah, my buddies might carry me, or my pants and the bottom of my shirt are going to get destroyed from the salt and all the things that they put on the ground. So it just depends.
So, just on the topic of your body, I mean, you must have incredible upper body strength. You must. Do you know, like, do you work out yourself to be able to get yourself, like, you must want to stay in a certain physical condition to be able to, for a long time into the future, continue to be able to be physical, right?
Yeah, that's the idea, right? Because my shoulders is what takes a brunt of all of the weight and all the activity that I do. And I've torn my rotator cuff twice. So like it's the worst surgery.
Yeah.
So I definitely do exercise every day in some capacity. I went from like lifting weights a lot to now I just will go for strolls, or do just like a little bit of light cardio on my hands, or something like that, to definitely stay in shape. And that's more just preventative, so I will have my arms for the rest of my life.
Use it or lose it.
Great lesson for people
That's right.
with disability that are listening, because I've also had a torn supraspinatus in my shoulder and had a Rico,
Oh,
and I was effed. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't shower. I couldn't dress myself because Spencer and I use our arms all day. So the reason you stay fit, and you'll agree with this, Spencer, is not to look ripped. There's an element of that, but it's also more so to prevent injuries. Because if we do our shoulders or triceps or that, because we use them all the time, Spencer, you're in a bit of trouble, aren't you?
yeah. When I had that surgery, I was 19, so I was super young, and I had to move back in with my parents because I was immobile. I couldn't use my arm, and so they literally had to. I could push my chair with one arm, but they literally had to like put me in my chair and take me to the bathroom and put me in the shower and all of those things. So yeah, if I don't have the use of these, I'm screwed.
When did the comfortability come with have you always been so comfortable with your parents for that physical aspect of things? Because
Well, you have no choice.
you've
I had
only
to do it
known
as
that?
well. You have no choice.
But then what about moving into care? Was there a certain comfortability with your body that you found or you always had?
I don't think it would be. I don't think it's any different than. So I have a younger sister who's 4 years younger than I am, who doesn't have a disability, and I think it's the same comfort level that she does. I don't think it's any different than. But I also come from a family that was very loving and lots of hugs and touching and that sort of stuff. So I don't know. It wouldn't feel foreign to me.
Now, speaking of places that are inaccessible, Mount Kilimanjaro, I couldn't imagine that being very accessible. So why did you make the decision? Like, can you tell us about why you made the decision to climb that mountain? And like, I mean, I didn't even know where I would start to even accomplish something like that. So, like, you're a crazy man. What gave you the thought to do that?
Yeah, so I was working for an organization here in Canada, and part of my job was to speak on behalf of the work that they do overseas, and then that was allowing me to travel 200 days out of the year, which was amazing. But one of the ways that I recharge is by spending time with my buddies. And so I was traveling so much, and my part of my job was to empower people to make a difference with causes that they care about. And so I was feeling guilty telling audiences that that's what they should be doing when I'd never really done it myself. And then the second piece was I just wasn't getting enough time with my friends. And so I thought, how can I put those two together? So I came up with this wild idea to climb Kilimanjaro. And I thought it could be like a cool 10 uninterrupted days of hang time with my friends. But also, why don't we raise $500,000 for clean water for East Africa, who at the time, was facing one of the largest droughts they'd seen in over 60 years. So that's sort of where the idea came from, was how do I take those two things and put them together?
How tall is Mount Kilimanjaro?
It's just under 20,000 feet, or about under 6,000 meters.
Ridiculous.
Hang on. Just for our Australian audience, I'm pretty sure Mount Kosciuszko is like 2,200 meters.
Yeah.
And that's our biggest mountain. Is that right? That's
One of
about
them.
right. That is crazy. How'd you do that? What did you do? Did they carry you? Did you walk on your hands? Did you train for it? Give us the rundown.
Yeah. So my buddies and I trained for a year beforehand. And it wasn't anything like some sort of special training. It was just like building up the muscles around my shoulders and just getting in better shape than I was. And then how we actually did it is, I trained that I would do half in my chair and half in my hands. But then we got there on the first day and we're like, like it's 80% of my hands and
No
20% of
wheelchair.
my
You
chair.
cannot get in a wheelchair up that. That would be steep as. You'd fall out backwards.
Well, here's the thing though, Kilimanjaro isn't necessarily a technical climb though. It is more of a hike until the last day. So the steepness isn't necessarily the problem. It's just the terrain itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, after the first day, we realized my buddies are going to have to carry me for part of it. I'm going to have to walk for part of it. I'm going to use my chair for part of it. So we're going to sort of do all of the above.
So hang on, they carried your chair when you weren't in it?
So we had some porters, obviously, that were helping carry our stuff. We worked with an incredible team. And so they would carry my chair. But we built this contraption while we were there because our guide knew right away. I think he had an idea that like it's going to be hard for me than we're anticipating. So we had this contraption made where they could take the wheels off my chair and they could fasten my chair to it almost looked like a ladder, but without the steps in between. And then I could sit in my chair and they would carry me above their head.
Wow.
Sort of like
a pharaoh
in the Roman
days.
days.
Like an Egyptian pharaoh.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. That's gangster. I need to hang on. Angus, why don't you carry me like that? That is cool.
You're 68 kilos,
Yeah,
mate.
true. Yeah.
That's unbelievable scenes. Have you got some photos of that you've shared on your socials of that particular moment?
I do. And actually just on TikTok last week, we shared a 4-part series of clips from the documentary that we did around it. So people could get an idea of what it physically looked like to actually climb it. So yeah, I got photos and videos and all the things.
Was there times when you wanted to give up? Talk about the pain during that climb. I mean, the end, that's tough.
Yeah. After the third day, I'm not a big fan of camping. Like that's just not my jam.
Not many
And so
hotels
to,
on Kilimanjaro. I checked last time I checked.
No. So like it's not my jam to camp and then to climb a mountain and then sleeping on the ground in a tent every night. Although it was cool to have this experience with my buddies, like that was challenging in itself. But yeah, having to get up every morning and walk for 5 or 6 hours was exhausting. But to be honest, my buddies were really great at keeping me going. But the part where I almost wanted to give up was when we were getting towards the top on summit day, and it was just around 18,000 feet. And my buddies got altitude sickness and I didn't. And I've never said this before, but it was the first time where I wish that I didn't have a disability that day, because, up until then, my buddies were physically carrying me. And I thought, this is my opportunity to carry my buddies.
Yeah.
And I can't physically do it. But, my buddies kept saying, what keeps us going is watching you walk. And so I thought, well, that's all that I can do. Then that's what I'm going to do.
Thanks for giving us ListenABLE the exclusive. Never been told before, Spencer West. I like that.
Well, no, I've told it before. Just I had never said it to myself.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Good.
Well, we should point out that documentary is called Redefine Possible, the story of Spencer West, and we'll put a link in our socials so people can check it out. And let's get onto the socials, because when you we've had 2 people who have sent specifically, we need to chat to Spencer West on our email. Hence why I found you and hit you up on Instagram, and I told you that. So you are prevalent on social media, and TikTok has been a great way for you to break down the stigmas around your disability. Can you talk about the audience that you've got, some of the questions it's raising, and some of the awareness that you've brought through socials?
Yeah, TikTok has been a whole new platform. I've been in the social media playground for the last 10 years, but in the last 2 months, TikTok is what really has opened me up to a larger audience, which has been amazing. In January, I started out with 20 followers, and I now have almost 2.7 million within the last 2 months. Yeah.
Put your hand up if you've got more than 100,000 followers on TikTok.
That's unbelievable. We love TikTok, Angus and I, but that is unbelievable.
That's huge.
That's so good.
Yeah. Thank you. And we're just blown away by the response. We were just looking tonight, and we've had over 374 million views in the last 2 months, just collectively. It's blowing my mind, and it's been cool because the content that people actually are interested in is not the stuff on TikTok that's just the challenges and the dances and all the things. Is people want to see how I navigate the world. People want to learn about how I cook in my house, how I drive my car, all of those things. And then there's also, the dark side of social media. Everyone wants to know, do I have a penis and can I drive a car and how do I have sex? And like all of those things, those invasive questions that come along with that. But I understand that's the social contract that sometimes we inadvertently sign when we make our lives so public. But it's been really cool to be able to infuse, sort of heart, honesty, humor, and a bit of awareness all at the same time. So we can have a laugh, hopefully still connect during this time. I mean, you guys are doing way better than we are when it comes to the pandemic. We're still in lockdown here. So it's been a nice way to provide a bit of humor and I hope a bit of reprieve from the pandemic, at least here in North America, as well as to like help folks understand the lived experience of some folks with disabilities.
It's powerful, brother. I mean, growing up as someone with a disability like you, there was nothing around, I work on TV and radio and that over here. And that's what I always say. That's why I love doing what I'm doing, because I like sharing stories. But as a double edge to that, I like, there needs to be more examples of people with disability in mainstream being normal. So people with disabilities can, live the lives they deserve to live. You know what I mean? Do you feel that? Do you feel a bit of pride in that? That, there are young amputees and young people with disabilities seeing you going, I can do that?
Yeah, that's the goal, man, is to help not only raise awareness for able-bodied people, to give them a glimpse into how we navigate the world and the barriers that we all choose to continue to perpetuate. So that's the first piece. But the second piece is, to give folks an example. Like similar to what you're saying, I would love to be like the first gay disabled host of a late night show here in North America.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't exist yet. And like, I would love to be that person. And it doesn't necessarily need to have a huge focus on disability, although that would be amazing, but just the idea that that's a goal and a dream that could be attainable for anyone, I think would be a really cool thing.
It is funny because obviously you've got a great personality, people. I mean, for the last 30 minutes, we get that you're an amazing speaker, funny, witty, got great stories to share, and you would be great in that hosting role. But then you'd also be behind a desk. And I think that's interesting that you wouldn't be hiding your disability. I mean, I'm not saying your show would be behind a desk, but traditionally looking at late night shows, it's all behind the desk. Would that normalize disability more by just being yourself from the chest up and people not knowing that? Or would you want to remove the desk and have you sitting in a chair and doing it that way? Which do you think is more powerful and impactful?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I would do a bit of both. Like the idea of what I would want the show to be is more of an experiential show. Sure, there'd be an interview aspect to it, but I think the thing that I've been chasing for the last 12 years is, what does happiness actually look like for me? I've never fit in the mold. I didn't fit in the mold as someone with disability. I didn't fit in the mold as someone that is queer. And I didn't fit in the mold as someone that like chased a university degree and then got a high paying job. And so I would love to be able to highlight folks, celebrities and folks alike that are chasing happiness, and what are those things that bring them happiness, and then how can we experience them together in front of an audience or in front of people at home. So I think it would be a mixture of the two, so they get a full range of things.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, as I worked on radio now for a while, and it's always nice when people, not so much anymore, but when I started, would come up and say, "Holy shit, you're in a wheelchair. I had no idea. I just liked you on the radio." And I was like, good to know. You know what I mean? Because they like you for who you are.
Or disliked him on the radio, we should also point out.
Or disliked me on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
Not many though, Spencer, obviously, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love that. Do you reckon North America's ready for a, gay guy in a wheelchair to be having his own TV show? I've been lucky to do some stuff over here, and I remember I played tennis, and the first time I interviewed a guy Rafael Nadal, they said, "How are you going to do that? How are you going to interview Rafael Nadal? He's going to be standing, you're going to be sitting." And I said, "I'm just going to hold a microphone to his face like everybody else." And they were like, "Oh, wow." Like the able-bodied world overcomplicated how it was going to work. What about North America? Do you think, because, I know there's not many examples of people with disability in North America really in the mainstream. Do you reckon they're ready?
I think they are, because I think one of the challenging and beautiful things that has come out of the pandemic is that we've seen an uptake in the social justice movements in all aspects, from the queer movement to the Black Lives Matter to even disability justice. And so I think we're at a tipping point right now where we're starting to it's having a bit more awareness and a bit more light than it did, say, 20 years ago. And right now that feels to be a big focus. Even I don't know how big the award shows are in Australia, but the Golden Globes just happened, and even Dan Levy although he accepted an award, said there's not enough representation for people of color on the show. And so I think people are forcing this conversation now. And even when we look at like even just blowing up on TikTok like I did, I think people are ready for this experience and ready to start to learn about this. That's my own personal thoughts, you know, whether it is or not, we'll see, but it feels that way.
And I also think that platforms are changing as well. We're thinking about, you know, late night television shows. But, you know, I've been in radio for 12 years and now I'm on podcasts because the world is changing into different media.
Mhm.
And who's to say that you can't host a TikTok platform show? I mean, you probably will reach more people than Jimmy Fallon would, you know? So I just think, I think the idea of platforms doesn't exist anymore.
Well, it makes
Wherever
it-
you find your audience, that's what matters.
It makes it easier as well for us, Spencer, because of like increased accessibility as well of these platforms. Work from home, make it on your own hours. You know, for people with disability, that's really important. It's an interesting thing you said before as well. You know, definitely not downgrading. You know, talking about equality for gender and race and religion and the LGBTQI community. But it's interesting at all these talks, everybody always says those four things, and you don't hear disability much, do you? But
No.
do you? It's you even use the example then. We need more representation of this, and it's like, and I always go, they're going to say disability. No, didn't say disability again. I agree with you though. I feel like the tide is changing. Do you reckon it will be mainstream soon?
It feels that way. You know, I think it'll be interesting to see where we land pre-pandemic, because I think, you know, one of the things that I've sort of been trying to let folks know is, you know, specifically here in Canada, what most people are experiencing right now to some degree is what it's like to not have access, right? And I think for the first time, people are starting to get a real life taste of what that feels like. And then when the pandemic is over and when the lockdown is finished, you know, folks without disabilities will go back to a world with access, and folks like myself will go back to a world that doesn't have access. So I'm hoping that will provide a little bit of perspective. And just to jump back really quick too, Judith, I think her last name is Human. She was a huge leader in the disability justice movement in the United States. She recently posted something on her Instagram, and basically was along the lines of, it's great that we are now bringing women to the table and people of color to the table, but did anybody stop to ask if the table was accessible?
Yeah, great line. I might steal that.
And so I think we're moving towards that. I think it might be a bit longer, but I think folks like us and the platform that you guys use in Australia to bring this message to people and to give folks a listen into what our experiences are, I think helps perpetuate that and move that forward in a much faster way.
Yeah, especially when you share the podcast on TikTok to 2.7 million people. That'll help.
100%.
Thank you, mate. Love you. Speaking of, you know, making the media, obviously you need some pretty high profile friends. And I was actually going through your Instagram before and I saw that we have a mutual high profile friend. Someone that Angus unfortunately hasn't met before. He's pretty flat about it.
Humility.
The Duke of Cambridge, Prince Harry. I saw him on your Instagram. Are you guys mates?
Yeah, you know, we the organization that I used to work for did these large scale youth events, and we used to do them in the UK as well. And Prince Harry used to come and attend, and he was a speaker a couple of times. And so yeah, we've met a few times, and he's just been a really nice guy. And anytime that we've been, and I make it sound like it's been all the time, it's been 3 times my entire life, but we've been in the same room, you know, we're always friendly to each other. But that's really it. It's not as if I can pick up the phone and call him, see, you know, what are you and Megan up to?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get a handwritten letter from him after winning Wimbledon, which was lovely. Angus, what about your interaction with Prince Harry?
I actually did see him in London once from afar. He was he was doing a parade with his army and I was standing on the street. So, you know, we've all had interactions, varying degrees.
I love it.
I'm not a royalist though. So, yeah.
Good gear.
Good for you guys.
It's good stuff.
Dating with disability. You've also been gay yourself. Was that an extra hurdle, or were the gay community more accepting? I mean, you probably wouldn't know the flip
question.
side of it.
I want to know this too. Yeah.
No, I would say in my experience, it's been a larger hurdle for me, because a lot of the gay community is really into image and looking a certain way. And although I do have the physique, and again, that's a privilege that I'm able to work out, and yeah, it's definitely been a challenge in multiple ways. Some people want to fetishize me. Some people are just into me emotionally. Some people are just into me physically. So it's been hard to sort of figure that out as to how I make it work. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So you single at the moment, or do you have a partner?
No, I am. I'm definitely single at the moment.
Hey, come out to Australia. There's some people listening to
Well,
this. I reckon Mardi Gras
very
on.
recently.
Mardi Gras as well. You'll dominate there, Spence.
Listen, I've never come during Mardi Gras, but everyone says it's insane.
But you are exactly right. The aesthetics in the gay community world is a certain ripped physique. I know guys, a radio producer in Sydney starved himself essentially for 3 weeks in the lead up to Mardi Gras to have himself a certain way aesthetically because that's what's pleasing. So you're saying you're struggling to find the right balance of the man who is going to find love in your physique and emotional, and you can't. Do you find people are leaning towards one or the other?
Yeah, that's typically been my experience, or just not interested at all. And that was so interesting when I first started like really getting on the dating apps as they became a thing. I felt like I had to do a second coming out because I didn't used to disclose my disability because I didn't think it mattered. And then when I would tell folks that I had a disability, some people would stop talking, some people would get angry, some people, it was a whole range of things. And so then I thought, oh, well, God, now I've got to start coming out a second time. So I've been putting in my profile currently, it says, your eyes aren't deceiving you. I don't have any legs. Everything's fine and not to worry. I can still pitch a tent, but I don't like camping.
Nice. I was going to say that, or I still have the leg that counts. One or the other. I got the leg that counts, baby.
Yeah, that's good.
I was like, that's good stuff, Spencer.
That is fun.
Oh, can I ask you about, you mentioned it before, and if you're obviously comfortable disclosing it, in the fetish space, you would get some weird requests, wouldn't you, on socials and stuff?
Yeah, I haven't got a ton on social yet. I mean, I'm sure that's on its way. But yeah, on a couple of dating apps, people are like, can you send me a video of you walking? Can you send me a video? So yeah, so there are some, and like, listen, no shade for people that everybody's got their kinks and things, but like that's not my jam. If we were partners, that might be a different story. We could talk about that, but just strangers, no, that's not for me. And of course, people want to know what I look like. I get that it's confusing because my t-shirts are long and you can't see that I have a waist and I'm wearing pants and all the things. So my mates and I keep joking that like if all these questions keep coming, they're just going to leak a nude photo of me.
No, don't
just
leak it.
Get it out there.
Don't
so
leak
people
it.
can take a look and we can move on.
Don't leak it. OnlyFans. Let's OnlyFans it together and we'll make millions. Bro, are you kidding? Do not leak that. That is cash.
My buddy keeps saying that. He was like 2.7 million people.
But that is money.
That's
that is
$10
cash.
a person.
Correct.
We could retire.
Don't worry about your buddy. We'll do it through ListenABLE, all right?
Well, I'm going to jump forward, which I've been doing a little bit lately in our podcast. We have a segment called The Bowl of Uncomfortable, which is where people send us questions that they feel would be too uncomfortable to ask you, and so we take the responsibility of it. But once again, we're trying to break down all stigmas of disability. So this one comes from Nate, and Nate asked, what do you wear below or underneath the t-shirt? Is it underpants? Is it cut shorts? What fits?
Free ball.
Yeah. No, I walk on my hands too much to be free ball, but I do. I wear underwear, boxer briefs. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
And then I also wear shorts. So yeah, shorts are the best thing for me.
Do you tailor?
So yeah, I definitely wear pants and underwear. I do, yeah. So when it's not like short season, then I will buy jeans, and then I have these lovely ladies that own a tailoring shop that always just turn them into shorts for me.
Nice. Well, thanks for the question, Nate.
When you see young people who are amputees, they might have a high level amputation like you do, and they hate their body image. What's your advice to them? Because we have a lot of people like that who listen.
This is tough.
Yeah, that's why we ask the good questions.
For me, yeah, Great job. For me, it's been a lot of self-discovery and working at that, and therapy has been really helpful for that. I keep coming back to my family, but I say it on purpose because it's, they were really amazing at, my grandmother always called me handsome. My family was always really good at helping to build that confidence. But I don't think I'll ever, no, that's not true. I think I'm now getting to a point, and I think this happens, and correct me if I'm wrong, whether you're able-bodied or disabled, that like, as you get a bit older, you just start to be okay in your own skin. And so for me, I think that's where I've gotten to, but it's been a long road, and it's been therapy and conversations with friends and all those sorts of things. So I don't know if I have any great advice. For me, it's just always been support and being comfortable enough to tell the people that I surround myself with what I'm feeling. And oftentimes it's even my buddies will be like, oh shit, I feel that way too. Sorry, I don't freaking swear, but
Dylan's been dropping about 3 so far. I've just wrote them down for edit points. Don't worry, no drama.
The S word's fine.
No, you need an explicit tag next to
Not
it.
next to S
Yes,
words.
you do, brother.
Oh.
Dylan has not done an edit, touched anything
But we
post
don't-
leaving the studio. He has no idea
Hey,
what goes on.
Spencer, it's all about being yourself, isn't it?
Oh,
Thank you
please.
very much.
Kids in cars, man.
I know, I'm sorry, I don't want to create more work for you either.
Not Dylan.
Hey, it's not me. I don't care, Spencer. Go nuts.
No, but I think Dylan. I think Spencer. What you don't realize is that you've just said you seek therapy, and for a lot of people, that's a closed secrecy. That or weakness, especially in men, that they don't want to go and seek that professional help. So somebody might be listening right now, going, "Oh, okay, well, this guy's openly speaking about going to see a therapist, so that might be enough, if that makes sense." So thank you very much for being able to share that you are going to see professional help.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on our podcast. We can't thank you enough. I'm going to give a couple of plugs. Of course, everything is going to be shared on social, including the incredible TikTok, 370 million likes. Woof. Redefine Possible, the story of Spencer West. That's the documentary. The book, great title, and we love a good title, Standing Tall, My Journey
Nice.
by Spencer West. We're going to put all the links so you can get more of the story of the man himself. Thank you so much for coming on ListenABLE. We really do appreciate it. And
Come to Mardi Gras in Australia when COVID's
yeah.
done. Are you promising that? I'll march with you. We'll dominate.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes, that's a promise.
all right,
Good.
2022.
2022.
Mardi Gras, watch out.
Spencer West. Look for him.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
mate.
brother. You're a legend.
Absolutely.
Listener.